morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Yesterday I said August was a slow time for Hollywood, but it looks like I spoke too soon, as we have three big announcements, or at least developments, to discuss today, as well as a very disturbing viewer question. Not the question itself, but what it potentially speaks to. But let's start with those stories. The first is actually a follow-up to something we've discussed quite a few times now here on Morning Movie News, and that's the possibility of a Hunger Games theme park. Well, yesterday, fittingly, Ultraviolence tweeted me a story where the CEO of Lionsgate confirms that this is indeed something they are actively pursuing, and it's really only a matter of time before it comes to fruition. The CEO also gave a little more details on the traveling, it turns out will be an exhibit that's going to coincide with the final Mockingjay film. Obviously not the final installation of this franchise. I think they are going to go with spin-off movies as well. If they're pursuing a theme park, then the studio has a responsibility to keep that brand alive, to keep interest in the theme park. So the Hunger Games isn't going away after Mockingjay. I think you can bet money on it because Lionsgate wants more money. But for this final film, it won't be an experience. It won't be something that you can do like an activity, but they're going to have a traveling exhibit of the props from this first franchise. What's going to be the first franchise. And they're calling it a museum tour of Panem. Or Panem. Not just the capital then, but you'll also see probably props from the other different districts, and also some insight into them, further world building, which clearly is a big priority now for Lionsgate as they seek to actually build this world in real life at a theme park. And actually it looks like theme parks. But anyway, this traveling museum, it's similar to what they did with the final Harry Potter film. They had a tour going around of the props from that film, which of course ended up being the Harry Potter studio tour out in England, just outside London at the studio they purchased. But there are other Harry Potter experiences. And I would say basically Lionsgate seems to be modeling their Hunger Games proliferation of real activities on what Warner Brothers has done with Harry Potter. So this museum tour, well, keep an eye out for it. It'll be coming, I'm sure, to most likely a town near you. So again, similar to Harry Potter, and also there was an Avengers, kind of museum tour going around as well. But what about these theme parks? All right, well, the CEO says they are in deep discussions with several, let's see, I want to have the exact quote, location-based entertainment opportunities. So that means even beyond theme parks. But as for theme parks specifically, the CEO said they have two that they are really moving forward with, or at least in terms of discussion. So that means they really want to make sure they can target the global market. Just again, like Harry Potter World. Wizarding World of Harry Potter is in Orlando, but they also just opened one in Tokyo, and then of course there's that studio tour in London, as I mentioned. So look for two theme parks for the Hunger Games. One, obviously, I would assume in the United States, and then one in some other part of the world where, obviously they're going to pick a region which would be easily accessible. I guess we could just go and look at the grosses for the Hunger Games and see where it performed the best overseas, and you can bet that second theme park will be somewhere in that area. So I think this is a very interesting situation. I wonder what they're going to do. Will it be its own theme park? Will it be in addition to an existing theme park? The second was what I would go with. I think, as I said before, traveling to an entire Hunger Games land seems unlikely to me. But hey, checking it out while I'm already there to see other parts of theme parks, sure, why not? And Orlando is going to get pretty crowded with movies. They not only have Harry Potter, but they're getting Avatar over at Disney's Animal Kingdom, and now I bet it looks like Hunger Games. If it was in the Disney property, they could conceivably build an entire park there, but just how much, Disney has no ownership here, and they have enough of their own properties. They have to get Star Wars off the ground, and potentially really expand that franchise's footprint in their theme parks already. That's a focus they have. I would bet very strongly that Universal is probably in talks for this because, Harry Potter, can only go so far. And also Harry Potter is overcrowded. It is very difficult to get into that park. Although actually I got into the old part of Harry Potter quite easily the last time that I went. But still, they have to keep people interested in coming back to Universal. And so to create another immersive experience like they did with Harry Potter, they already have a success rate, and they've proven that they can do it. I think fans I would feel very comfortable with having Universal house a Hunger Games expansion. So I would go to this though. If it was some other park, and if I was already going to be in the area, it's something I would definitely check out because the capital is very distinct. The whole world of Hunger Games is very distinct, even more so as Francis Lawrence continues to flesh it out in the movies. All right, so that's the first story of the day. Thank you, Ultraviolence, for tweeting me that story. I love it when you guys tweet me stories, and even if I don't always cover them, sometimes I do, and I think it just makes for a more interesting experience for all of us. Now, the second story is something a lot of people also talked about, and that's that Simon Cowell is making a Betty Boop movie. Now, Betty Boop is a very old character. She hasn't been popular for quite some time, but the Smurfs are coming back. They're working on bringing Popeye back. Alvin and the Chipmunks came back, so why can't Betty Boop come back? And as soon as I heard the news that Simon Cowell particularly was involved, it reminded me so much of the Gem and the Holograms movie that's in the works. That, of course, is being worked on by Jason Blum, who's largely a horror producer up to this point. John Chu is going to direct. He's done a lot of dance films, but he's also done the G.I. Joe films. The second one, and then also Scooter Braun, Justin Bieber's manager. He's going to be in there as well, and I'm sure to manage any of the talent that is going to be singing in the movie. But Gem and the Holograms is an entirely live-action film, whereas Betty Boop is going to be a live-action animation hybrid. Fleischer Studios, who owns Betty Boop, also of course Superman, originally working on that. They're already involved in talks with Simon Cowell, and then also they've brought in the animation company that worked on the Lego Movie, and they obviously did very quality work there, and did a very good job of keeping loyalty and an homage to the brand. I mean, it looked like Legos. They didn't play with it. They realized the importance of this beloved creation, and they did a very nice job bringing it to life. So Simon Cowell, of course, he's getting more and more into movies. He does the One Direction films he produces, also that film One Chance. It still hasn't come out here in the United States. James Corden is the star of that film. It's about a former contestant on one of Simon Cowell's shows who wanted to be an opera singer and became, quite successful, I think. Just like Susan Boyle, he's like the other big name to come out of Simon Cowell's UK television shows, but that film just never really got off the ground. But Betty Boop, I think, is a good property for him, and of course he has a big music background, and he's a very strong promoter. One Direction didn't do too well, but then they're releasing the second film, which is going to be just really only for one weekend, hoping to really, because if they make it a must-see limited window event, they think maybe they'll get a little more excitement about the film. But anyway, as for Betty Boop, so it's going to be live action animation hybrid. But I have to say, if you're not familiar with Betty Boop, let me familiarize you. This is an extremely sexual character, mostly through innuendo, but sometimes with outright sexuality. This is back in the days, before the production code, and when they could be a little more risque in Hollywood, and they were, Mae West, etc. So Betty Boop, if you watch any of her old cartoons, there is a definite sexual nature to it. So it makes me wonder how the character is going to translate today, who they think the audience for this is going to be. Obviously, to hit the biggest demographic and the best chance of box office success, it needs to be an all-ages market. But is Betty Boop really an all-ages character? Is there any people are going to be interested in her? And also, are they going to redo her look? I mean, she has a look designed to go around the time period she was invented. It's just like if you look at the Disney princesses, they really reflect the time period when they were invented. Snow White, for instance, you'll see a lot of similarities between Snow White and Betty Boop, because that's just what was popular back then, what was considered attractive. But of course, times and styles have changed quite a bit today. So I actually also want to call your attention to another animation live-action hybrid film, which did not shy away from its sexuality, and that's Cool World. I've put a link to the trailer in the video description. It starred Brad Pitt, Gabriel Byrne, and Kim Basinger way back in the day, and it is an incredibly sexual cartoon. The trailer, I think, should be okay for all ages. It's not a red band trailer, but if you want to go watch inappropriate cartoons, you can just search for Cool World on YouTube. It's kind of like Jessica Rabbit taken even further. Jessica Rabbit. Maybe now that I think about it, that's the safe spot where Betty Boop could live. I would say, think Jessica Rabbit. If I were Simon Cowell, that's what I would say to all the people working on this film. I would say not Cool World. Cool World was not a success at the box office, I think, because of its overtly sexual nature. You should, as they say in the movie, you shouldn't have sex with cartoons, and I think there's a little bit of, obviously, a societal frowns upon you wanting to do so in real life as well. Although, tell that to all the hot cartoons that exist there, right? Hiccup, the Disney princesses, and all the conversations and all the, I guess, if you just go on to all the fan art and all the shipping, you can see that I guess cartoons are to some degree quite sexual. But that's kind of like the undercurrent. I think when the forefront from Hollywood's perspective, they need to be all ages. So we'll see what happens with Betty Boop. I question whether or not it can really succeed. I think the brand is not even really that popular today, but who would have ever guessed that a Smurfs movie the first one at least, would do so well in the first Alvin and the Chipmunks film. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I also do think maybe Gem and the Holograms should have been an animated movie. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story of the day is a little bit of a downer because I think it's a little sad, and that's Bad Boys 3. This was a big deal yesterday. It was trending on Twitter because Martin Lawrence made some comments about how Bad Boys 3 was still moving forward. It's been so long, obviously, since the first two films. They were big hits for Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, and Michael Bay directed those movies. But of course, Smith and Bay have moved on. Bay actually the most, and Smith, had a very illustrious career, but I think right now, he's still only one to join the $1 billion club, but he doesn't have quite the same loyalty from his fans. People love to hate Michael Bay at this point. Will Smith, he got a little sidetracked with trying to promote his family, but we'll see. But Martin Lawrence, Martin Lawrence is the one who needs this the most, and I also think he's the element that would keep the others from returning. Because, Martin Lawrence, with all due respect, he's fallen quite a bit from, his Bad Boys days. He just had a sitcom debut opposite Kelsey Grammer on FX. And hey, everyone's got to work, and I applaud Martin Lawrence for continuing to keep his career alive. It's hard to do in Hollywood, especially when you have some flops. But at the same time, does he realistically think that Will Smith, despite the problems that Will Smith is having, that he's going to come back and star opposite Martin Lawrence in this film? I just don't see it happening. And I don't think Michael Bay is going to come back to the property either. So I think what you really are seeing, because also Martin Lawrence says, hey, I talked to Jerry Bruckheimer. Jerry Bruckheimer said that everyone's working on it. But I would be like, I'll believe it when you actually start to bring in a director and et cetera. I mean, maybe someone might be working on it, but how much of a priority is it really for Bruckheimer? I would say if it is at all a priority for Bruckheimer, the reality would probably be that Martin Lawrence would star. Maybe Will Smith would make a cameo, but you're probably looking at new talent having to come in and co-star with Martin Lawrence and still use the Bad Boys name. So I'm curious, would you see a Bad Boys movie that only starred Martin Lawrence and where Will Smith didn't return or was just a cameo and Michael Bay was not involved? Is this something that you're that interested in that it could survive all those changes? And also, are you even still interested in a Bad Boys 3 movie? I guess so, because it had so much attention on Twitter, and maybe that was Martin Lawrence's goal, to show Bruckheimer that it should be a priority for him because there's so much fan interest. But fan interest doesn't always translate into box office, as we've seen so many times at this point with Scott Pilgrim, Snakes on a Plane. Just because people are talking about it doesn't mean they necessarily want to see it. And also look at all the people who are pirating The Expendables 3, and that's looking to really bomb this weekend, when there should be conceivably a number of people who haven't pirated it. It's only about 2 million times that it has been downloaded. That leaves a lot of people who could still be seeing the movie. So that's the third story of the day, and I'm curious to how you feel about that. Now let's move on to this viewer question, which, as I said, is very disturbing because of the potential situation it questions. So actually, 2 people contact me about this. Solly Thoughts tweeted me, but then Adam Thomas asked me an official question. So that's the one I'm going to read, but thank you, Solly, for contributing as well. So Adam says, question, hi Grace, I'm a longtime viewer since back in the Indie Mogul days. That's awesome, Adam. And Adam says, I wanted to get your opinion on a very serious matter. This is serious. Adam says, when The Purge and the more recent Purge Anarchy came out, you were concerned about irresponsible filmmaking on the way they created violent scenarios and portrayed them in a realistic way. Yes, as I said in both my reviews, what I found so terrifying about The Purge is that I could really see it happening. Well, listen to this. Adam continues saying, I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and yesterday an image surfaced online of the Purge movie poster with the text, Purge Jacksonville, August 30th. Hopefully this all turns out to be a prank, but local police say they are taking it as seriously as a threat from gang activity. Then Adam continues saying, do you feel that irresponsible filmmaking was the impetus of this threat? If so, would the filmmakers be partially responsible if anything were to happen? I've come to value your opinion and hope that you may take a moment to address this issue. Thanks. Love your channels. Adam. First of all, Adam, no matter how likely it is, I would really tell you, I don't know where you live in Jacksonville, Florida, but I would be very concerned about just the possibility of this happening. So I hope that you take every precaution to protect yourself. If you know anyone maybe in a neighboring city or town, maybe just for the night, you just go and stay with them, just to get out of there, just in case. But you'll have an idea, a little bit of a better idea if this is a reality after today, because very frighteningly, Kentucky also has a threatened purge, which is supposed to take place starting at 8 p.m. tonight local time. That's also being threatened, and the police are taking that seriously as well. Now, this is a very scary situation, and I know a lot of people will, it's going to speak to the whole idea of, do video games inspire violence? Do movies inspire violence? But, this is the situation where they're using the exact same title. However, it's not actually a purge. The purge is government-sanctioned violence. This is just a riot. Unless they mean they just want to go on a full-scale, killing and, property destruction decree. But as you can see from the police, this is not sanctioned by the government. But it does speak to what scared me about the Purge films, and that is just so much anger and hate and resentment of our fellow members of our community that exists in the world today. It's really terrifying, and I think that things like sometimes movies, but also the internet and just like the things that people say. You can just, for instance, look at some of the Guardians of the Galaxy comments. A lot of you expressed disgust in the way some people handled themselves, and some people definitely went too far. And who thinks that's okay? But for a while now, that's been just, it's been just relegated to the anonymity of the internet. But the Purge also speaks to anonymity because people wear masks, etc. But again, they have a free pass. Just like on the internet, you have a free pass to do whatever you want. These people, thankfully, do not have a free pass. The police, I'm hoping, can maintain this threat. So do I think that the filmmakers are responsible? I actually would say they are not. Because, in my opinion, the filmmakers of The Purge, and we're talking about the director, I believe James DeMonico, but also producer Jason Blum, they recognized this as a problem before it happened. I mean, people have been rioting, and there's been gang activity for quite some time. They didn't invent this kind of violence. And so I think what they did is they acknowledged and were able to highlight just how serious the undercurrent of anger is in the United States right now. So I don't think that they're to blame, because then under that same, as many people say, under that regard, what kind of movie or video game or anything could you make? They could call this something else. They could call it Mad Max if it wasn't, let's say, for The Purge. This is just, a film that happens to exist at the moment. But The Purge does speak to this anger. So I find it very frightening, and I continue to think it's a problem, and I don't understand why well, I guess there's always anger, but it's just becoming really bad. And I think the problem with it is also a sense of helplessness, an emerging class system in the United States, which we're not supposed to have. And it's terrifying. So, Adam, my thoughts will be with you on the 30th, and anyone in Kentucky. I'm very concerned about you, obviously, this evening. And I would just say the best that you can do, I mean, obviously, hopefully the police can take care of this, but I would say to everybody here who's watching, control your temper, control your anger. Use your words, but don't use them in a hurtful, hateful way. Violence you should take seriously. People say, well, I said I would do something violent, but I would actually never do it. Would you? What point do you think you might cross that line? And even if you wouldn't do it, maybe someone else is taking your comments the wrong way and thinking that you would. You don't know what you might be inspiring in another individual. So, you can only change starts with you, and sometimes that's as much as you can do. You can only affect change by being an example. So best where you can do some good, and if you see somebody who's really angry and upset, maybe you can advise them, to get some help and to talk out their feelings, and this isn't going to solve any problems. But as I said, I do not think that the filmmakers are responsible for this. I think that before anyone else, they noticed this problem. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question. Also, let me know anything you'd like to see covered on Monday and any questions that you might have. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for watching. I'm so upset about this Purge thing. Be safe, everybody, in Jacksonville and Kentucky. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.